As President of the United States, I travel the world all the time. And other nations ask me, heads of state in other countries ask me, what's going on? What in God's name happened on January 6th? What happened in Buffalo? What happened? They ask.
That is Joe Biden making a stump speech today at the service for the dead, massacred Buffalo, the people in Buffalo,
Seems appropriate.
black people. And
I'm sure their loved ones wanted to hear about January 6th.
not missing a beat to tethering this massacre, this racist massacre, to January 6th, a white supremacist movement, so that you know that the Republicans are your mainstream. The Republicans did this. In other words, Joe Biden says, always happy to trade on the fears of minorities for his own political selfish gain, because he's a piece of... He is. I'm sorry. I was on with Jerry Callahan today, again, for the first time in a long time. And Jerry asked, like, does this guy have any governor, like a limiting mechanism? Whatever? Mm-hmm. He doesn't. He'll always go craven, vicious, dirty, and divisive. It's built into everything he does, which is why if there is a hell, he is certainly going there. God, I hope so. Okay. Here's another Biden moment at the service for the fallen people who were massacred by a psychotic who wrote and stole most of, but wrote some of, a stupid, huge psychotic manifesto where he's really interesting. He's really a menage of thoughts. You know, wow, what an interesting person. In other words, he's another loser effing assassin who shouldn't be given 2 cents of reckoning. And he's not part of an enfranchised movement anywhere. He's an effing loser. But here's Joe Biden also stumping for Democrats on the in the wake of the massacre.
The hate that through the media and politics, the internet, has radicalized, angry, alienated, lost, and isolated individuals into falsely believing that they will be replaced, that's the word, replaced, by the other, by people who don't look like them.
He's now also redefining replacement theory.
Right.
So it can now be closer to be seen as reasonably resembling what Republicans and Fox News are saying.
Yeah, the problem is that when you redefine so-called replacement theory to be what people on Fox News say, Democrats also say that a lot. Right?
Yes, because it's part of fundamental political analysis that you would talk about demographics and the shifts in demographics, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
But now the left has found a way to toxify it if Republicans use it and raise alarm bells to Democrats and poor minority voters, so that they see, look for this in a racist. So when you go on Fox News and they ever mention race, that's what that is that the president was talking about. He wouldn't have lied to us at the funerals of our loved ones.
It's so psychotic. And of course, I mean, what we've been saying all along, that this is a Democratic talking point, has come up again. A bunch of people were retweeting tweets from Democrats. Jen Rubin said a year or two ago how great it was. She commented on some article about how for the first time in years, the number of white people declined in America. And she was like, great news. This is wonderful for our country or something. And it's like, right. So, which... You know, there is a shift in demographics occurring in the country, and whether you think it's good or bad probably depends on your politics and a lot of other factors. But, you know, simply noting that that's going on is not replacement theory. And that's what the same thing that Tucker Carlson and other people do. But don't you think it's also a little bit convenient that they came up with this whole, like, replacement theory thing right at this time? Like, the whole thing with the New York Times doing a big 3-part, tens of thousands of words essay about Tucker Carlson and how many times he's mentioned replacement theory, and then like they get exactly the shooter they've dreamed of the whole time. Like it's, I mean, I'm not saying anything's a plot. I don't think it is, but I think that they're deliberately setting up a scenario where they're picking something that, because obviously this was copied off other people, like huge chunks of this guy's manifesto were copied from like the New Zealand church shooter and stuff, and from the El Paso shooter, right? So these ideas, these statements, some of which are leftist ideas, by the way, very environmentalist ideas, all these things, but you know, they're trying to, there's a weird ideology out here of some people who like to go and kill people, and they're deliberately framing this to be a right-wing idea and trying to twist things that they know right-wing people say into this narrative of people like this, even though you could just as easily twist this into a leftist
Well, sure,
narrative.
because what they're doing is giving a lot of credence to this guy's manifesto as a serious document by doing it. And they have to, because they want it to be seen as a credible guidebook for psychos.
Right.
So based off of course, Tucker Carlson and right-wing media, etc. So they're carving out the stuff about replacement theory and misapplying it to this crime. Where the two versions we know of are the old trope they created in France about Jews trying to undermine the power structure by bringing in encouraging races to come and offset the power structure with the new populations, or with the new one, the more in 20 years ago, the essay by that guy Teixeira or whatever about Latinos coming in and becoming, you know, which is also just gone sideways anyway. But no,
of course.
So it's neither of those. So it's as much this shooting is as much as about taken from the parts of the manifesto on replacement theory as it is from the climate theory the guy espouses, because neither of them apply to this crime. And
the socialism the guy espouses and everything else, right? And people who are like this, who espouse radical ideologies, often espouse multiple radical ideologies, and often aren't particularly picky about which ones they're into.
And he's not thoughtful, and he's 18, and that's why, like, so this is not about, if it was replacement theory, one, the guy would have walked into a synagogue, if it was the first version, or two, the guy would have tried to kill Mexicans or Latinos, whatever, you know, down near the border, you know, like has happened. But those are obviously are abhorrent acts, and this is an abhorrent act. But it can't be taken from a guidance immediately from the book, the manifesto having to do with replacement theory.
Right. So, I mean, the three people that this guy, and this tells you right here, like, how all over the place this thing was, right? The three people that this kid wanted to see assassinated in his manifesto were George Soros, which is like, okay, par for the course for crazy people, like conspiracy theorists, right? And then Erdogan from Turkey. And then
that's an odd one.
And then Sadiq Khan, the mayor of London. So, I mean, like, this doesn't fit into, this guy's not on a mission for some organized movement to, like, change America in some way. This is all over the place. And like I say, like, there's oftentimes conspiracy theory type movements do sort of roll in lots of other conspiracy theories too. You know, like, once you are open to believing stuff, then these things sort of feed into each other, and you end up believing a lot of them at once. And this clearly was going on here, because he had all sorts of stuff about Jewish people and whatever, like that he believed, and you can't then say that anybody who comments on something about politics that's marginally related to this, because he believed all kinds of stuff. Like, so anybody on any side of the political spectrum is going to believe stuff that shows up in this manifesto. You know, he also doesn't like Jewish people. Does that mean he's like Black Lives Matter? He also is all about the environmental movement. Does that mean AOC is responsible? Somebody that it's like much easier to clearly connect to a specific political movement is like the Bernie Sanders, the congressional baseball game shooter, right? Who, you know, was on his Facebook post directly mimicking things said by specific candidates, you know, by specific talking heads on TV. This is a person who, who was listening to stuff that people were saying and believed congressional Republicans were
Yes.
going to kill
This
them
guy
and
wrote-
wanted to stop
He
them.
wrote missives to Rachel Maddow at NBC.
Right. So he was, and and some of his things are like direct quotes from Joy Reid and stuff. So he's obviously like listening to specific people, taking what they say at face value and taking it way too far, which is also, by the way, not those people's responsibility.
Of course.
It's not Rachel Maddow's responsibility that a crazy person, or Bernie Sanders' responsibility, or Joy Reid's responsibility that a crazy person decided to act on what they said in that way. They're not responsible for that. But if they're not responsible for that, how much more so is nobody at Fox responsible for this guy who believed a mishmash of things from all across the political spectrum and specifically hated Fox News because he felt that it was run by Jews? Like,
This guy was an F up and a monster and should not be regarded with any more seriousness.
well, right. And
and who are therefore in a perverse ideology that they possess and being fed lesser beings. I and all of you reject the lie.
Lesser
I
beings.
call on all Americans to reject the lie. And I condemn those who spread the lie for power, political gain, and for profit.
And you're listening to him right there. That is a guy who spread these lies and is happy to divide the people in that room for an applause line at a memorial service. Holy hell.
We've now seen too many times the deadly and destructive violence this ideology unleashes. We heard
Well,
the
what ideology in particular are you talking about from this 180-page garbage novel?
chance. You will not replace us in Charlottesville, Virginia. I wasn't going to run, as the senator knows, again for president.
This is a Trump go-to stump speech line. This is him telling a room full of black people that he saw the injustices of the Klan rally that was led by Donald Trump, and that's what got him into the race. Mm-hmm. This is him doing this at a funeral or a service for massacred black people in the United States. What he's doing here is so irresponsible and so divisive and so horrifically incendiary that this guy lacks. He cannot kiss the feet of Donald Trump when it comes to ethical or moral behavior. I'm sorry. This is so divisive that it is a cancer on our culture, and it does no favors to the marginalized communities that Democrats are supposed to be lifting up.
When I saw those people coming out of the woods or the fields in Virginia.
This is part of his stump speech. He usually works himself up to get mad at this point.
Did they come out of the woods?
Yeah, they come out of the woods. He works himself up to get mad.
In Charlottesville, carrying torches, shouting, "You will not replace us," accompanied by white supremacists and carrying Nazi banners. That's when I said, no. And I, honest to God, those who know me, Chuck, I wasn't going to run for certain. But I was going to be darned if I was going to let anyway. I'm going to get going.
Oh, wow, he's really serious about this now. He puts his best acting into it, his best dramatic flair into it. I was going to be darned if I was going to let that Nazi Trump destroy the country and cause another Holocaust. There, I said it. Oh, I better reel myself back. Hold on.
I believe Biden's president now.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So if there's division and stuff happening, then how come this happened now? If Biden got elected in order to prevent things like this shooting, how come he hasn't prevented this shooting? Because it seems that if he's trying to say like Trump was so divisive and empowered people like this to do things like this, on what planet, like how is Trump responsible for this guy who, I don't know, this kid wouldn't even have been old enough to have voted for Trump.
You heard Al Sharpton. He watched in 2015.
At which point he was a socialist.
He watched in 2015,
okay.
And he saw that it was okay. That Trump said there's very fine people on both sides. The Klansmen and the Nazis are just very fine. And this kid said, you know what? I'm all in now. I'm all in. And that's what happened. Okay. So we'll get off of him for a second. But like I was talking to Jerry today, there's no limit. This guy will say anything at any time. And because Trump says stuff that's awkward and cringeworthy in inopportunity times and throws paper towels and does like weird, awkward, is kind of antisocial tick behavior because he is kind of an odd duck. That's one thing. This is all purposeful, what Biden's saying here. This isn't a tick. This is him seeing how he can divide, seeing how he can gain power from scaring the F out of people in doing his best job of acting in order to do it. This is a sick bastard at work here. Okay. Where do you want to go next? Allie B?
Well, The View had thoughts today.
All right.
Speaking of Tucker Carlson and his terrible influence over right-wing people and how he's spreading hateful ideas.
By the way, thumbs down to Jordan Peterson. Thumbs down. You saw that
He's leaving Twitter?
Yeah, he left Twitter. He made people hide his password because he said that the fat woman on Sports Illustrated wasn't beautiful, which is a fairly safe consensus thing to say. But now he's heard the feedback, so now he's scared off of Twitter. Come on. You're allowed to say stuff that's true, okay? The psychos are the ones who raise hell now. So if the psychos are raising hell, you've said something perfectly normal, which is fine. To The View we go.
I'd like to give a little history about
Do
this.
please.
Okay, back in World War II period, there was a guy named Father Coughlin.
Oh, yeah.
And he was an anti-Semite and a racist, and he was a priest from the Catholic Church. He had, in a country of 127 million, he was on the radio, 127 million people in this country, he had 30 to 40 million listeners. That's a lot.
Yeah.
A lot.
Especially back
Tucker
then.
Carlson has, in a country of 326 million people, we have grown, he has 3 million listeners. So it's 30 to 40 million versus 3 million. He's almost irrelevant if you think about it. And I think maybe that's the way to go with him. Just ignore him. Every time we talk about him, every time the media gives him airtime, he gets bigger and bigger.
So, what I love most about that is she starts with, "Let me give you all a little history lesson."
I know. As though she had heard of that guy or any of that before,
Right.
like this morning when her people...
Father
briefed her.
Coughlin, who Jonah Goldberg claims is actually pronounced Coughlin on the radio show. I don't know. I don't know the Tucker's ratings go by listeners. That's neither here nor there. But he's got a lot more than everybody else.
So The View is going to stop platforming Tucker Carlson
Right.
and giving him listeners by allowing him to benefit from their huge audience, which I'm sure is why Tucker Carlson is so popular, is that they keep talking about him. I mean, it's just funny because he's simultaneously the worst threat in the world and so dangerous and also completely irrelevant and has no audience whatsoever. So, and it's funny because it's interesting. Tucker Carlson has a huge audience for a primetime cable show.
Yeah.
Right. Now, obviously, radio shows from last century were able to have much bigger audiences because there were fewer of them and like fewer choices of things people had to listen to or watch versus like cable, which is run by subscription. But, you know, Tucker has an audience much bigger than anyone at CNN and NBC, sometimes a bigger audience than Hannity. Which for somebody who's as established as Hannity is incredible. And it's just so ignorant of them to claim that he's somehow small or insignificant when he's built essentially out of nothing and essentially out of being completely out of the news entertainment business. He's like built this massive ratings juggernaut of a show that's absolutely uncancelable. And it's because he's the only person a lot of times who's saying things that other people won't say, right?
Well, I would take issue, if you want me to, with some of that.
Okay, yeah, go for it.
He wasn't out of the business. He was hanging around Fox. He was doing the thing when there's one guy in front of eight-legged girls, in between eight-legged girls, and he was doing the morning show a lot, and he was in around the building. He was living there, looking for gigs. There's no doubt about that. But he didn't have his own show somewhere at that point. But, you know, he filled in for O'Reilly because O'Reilly was getting the boot. And he did inherit, certainly, a good look from a lot of viewers who were O'Reilly fans. And I think he knew. I think that there's a stark difference between Tucker and I put Tucker and O'Reilly into some and Ingram in their own category, kind of. Where no, at least Tucker and O'Reilly, maybe in Ingram, I guess, where they're the real thing. Like O'Reilly was a real kick-ass reporter. He was a less tall, more alligator-looking Bill Melugin. No, he was taller, actually. He was a local reporter, no-nonsense BS. So when he got to Fox News, he was ready to maul people if they wouldn't step in line when they were on the show. So he brought something like to the rest of the lineup. When Tucker was on sitting with the morning show or the other shows as he was filling in, it was child's play for him. He was always a thinker. He was a columnist, a Weekly Standard guy. He was a thoughtful, sort of intellectual Washington guy. And he had chops. And I think he knew that he could, being Tucker Carlson, being younger and floppy-haired and having been in Dances with the Stars and embarrassed himself, kind of, I think he knew that he could have access to a steady cavalcade of guests, loony progressives. And he used the white-hot spotlight of O'Reilly to maul them and dismember them in ways on the air and let them dismember themselves that nobody has seen. They did him a gift, and he used the hysteria of the Trump administration, the hysteria it caused on the left, to play off their psychoses, which he could see right through. So
right, but nobody was. I mean, to an extent, people were doing this at Fox. Were on the like loony lefty wokeness beat, but nobody was really attacking it like that. Like nobody was going after it, and going after it when Republicans did it too, or bringing on people who were really super woke. Like it sort of, they've always had sort of the liberal commentator, like the Five will have Juan Williams on or Bob Beckel on it, right? And sort of the token liberal on stuff.
Those are warm fuzzy liberals,
right?
You could never have Glenn Greenwald on the Five.
No, of course not.
Right.
But and they never
he's a guy who fights with daggers.
Right. Or they would never have on like Lauren Duca from Teen Vogue, who's like a passionate warrior for the other team either. And now Tucker doesn't have as much of that because they're scared of him, right? So they won't go on with him generally. But like I think a lot of Republicans and Democrats are scared to go on Tucker now in a way that they weren't before. But that's because, Tucker doesn't play safe, and Tucker will go after people, and Tucker says stuff and thinks stuff. He's not just parroting a party line. I mean, I think it's fair to say Tucker has changed the Republican Party in the time since he's had this show.
Yeah.
And his show has grown so big, it goes both ways, right? Like he's influenced, I think, the direction of conservatism, but I also think that his show has grown so big because he's seen where people are in a way that the mainstream of the party hasn't, the sort of like Hannity mainstream, right? Where Hannity will like go, and Trump to an extent is like a Hannity too. Like, and Trump's very, very good at what he does. And Trump was not afraid to question Republican Party orthodoxy in a lot of ways. But Trump's also not a creative policy and ideas guy. Right. Trump is repeating things that he's heard other people say that have caught his attention or resonated with him. And he's like good at picking them. But, Tucker is writing the narrative of where he thinks conservatism needs to go and having a huge influence doing it. Right. And in that sense, I think he's much more where the base of the party is. And I'm really interested. Today's that Pennsylvania primary that I'm not allowed to talk about with you. I'm really interested to see what happens tonight in Pennsylvania because I really see that as a test really of, when Trump endorses someone as his like anointed MAGA person, but then somebody else is in the primary who's more MAGA than the MAGA person, right? And, Hannity's been firing a lot on Kathy Barnett too in Pennsylvania. And that's because he's a Trump loyalist and Trump endorsed Oz, so he's pro Oz, and Rick Grinnell is pro Dr. Oz because Trump endorsed Oz, and it's a team effort and the whole thing. But
By the way, I know it's politics, but I do find it gross.
what, that they're all attacking her
Yeah.
because Trump endorsed Dr. Oz?
Yes.
Yeah, and I mean, I think there are fair criticisms there. She is an unknown. She could put potentially a safe seat at risk in a general election. But I also think that Republicans doing this to fellow Republicans during the primary lends itself to that narrative for the general also. You know what I mean? Like, once, say she is nominated, once we get to the general election, a bunch of people in the general election, Democrats, are going to point to her and say, look, even the Republicans said she was extreme, she was unvetted, she was not a serious candidate, and she couldn't be elected. And they're going to point to that and say that, you know, MAGA Republicans said that about her. So now, you know, so
Wouldn't
in a
that
way
be interesting
they create
if
the
that
narrative.
happens and they can't afford any context or leniency suddenly to a black woman? This one is not no historic here. You don't get any of that stuff. No.
No, Joy Reid, it was a
No,
long time
because
ago.
Trump's people called you a psycho. That proves you're a psycho. So that's right. You don't get to do it. I don't know.
So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see what happens there. I mean, it's hard to say. It's been a messy past few days with that campaign, but I'm definitely intrigued to see how that goes. But yeah, I think that the Republican Party's in a really interesting place, and I think that there's a stark difference even amongst sort of, you know, what liberals would consider all MAGA world, right? Like, they consider all Trump and Hannity and Tucker and Laura Ingraham to, like, all kind of be the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
But I think as somebody who's, like, in that conservative world, that the differences, like, could not be starker to me, you know? And I think that it's going to be interesting to see what happens over not just this Pennsylvania primary, but over this whole election cycle and the types of Republicans that get elected and stuff.
I'm going to go to this MSNBC panel here, only because it has Campaign Carl on it, Carl Cameron, who I haven't seen in quite a long time. And it's about, obviously, Republicans, our QAnon, our white supremacists, our replacement theory, yada, 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 yada.
Championed by Tucker Carlson. What happens at Fox News when something like this happens?
I can't even imagine. It's partly why I ended up getting out of there. It really is kind of horrible to think that journalists with national and international capacity are putting together this type of nonsense. I think the president did a great job. I wish he had done a lot of this a lot sooner, and we need a lot more from the left and the middle. And we got to watch out, because the Republicans have become the purveyors of misinformation. And when our two-party system is broken like that, democracy is seriously in trouble. The president acknowledged that. It's time to actually start doing things and maybe taking some names and putting people in jail.
This is what we call in the business a job interview. And I don't mind Carl Cameron doing it. I don't mind. I've always liked him.
Who's he going to put in jail?
I've always liked him. He's going to make his. Once you've been at Fox News the whole time, the best way to make a living after that is be the anti-Fox News whistleblower guy, who with Nicole Wallace, who was a Republican as well. He can tell you, really, you know, the whole time they were really evil. He didn't mind taking a paycheck from that evil place for a long time, but whatever it takes, Carl, I'm all for you. Let's see. Where do you want to go next, Albie? How about Elon Musk?
Okay.
I like this line from Elon Musk. I saw that it was said. I didn't see it said.
Man, it's hard to tell what Biden's doing, to be totally frank. I feel like
it's weekend at Bernie's.
The real president is whoever controls the teleprompter. You know, the path to power is the path to the teleprompter. You know, like what? Because then he just reads the teleprompter. So, you know, I do feel like if somebody would accidentally lean on the teleprompter, it's going to be like Anchorman. It's going to be like QQQ ASDF 123, you know, type of thing.
I mean,
what audience is that?
I'm not sure.
There was a lot of complicit laughing at the Biden, My goodness. I don't know. Elon Musk SpaceX joins the Besties. Besties is another one of these podcasts that we're not on that where they make $150 million a year.
Yeah, well, and so the deal is a mess right now. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know if it's really going to go through him buying Twitter.
It's called The Besties, the podcast.
Okay.
Bestie guesty, Elon Musk joins the Besties via Zoom.
Okay.
The Bestie guesty guys, Alice, are enjoying a lot of commercial.
Okay, jealousy doesn't become you.
Yes,
honey.
it does become me, Alice. It is all over me, like when the Emperor electrocuted Luke with the electric stuff all over.
Well, so we might not be getting interviews with Elon Musk and Donald Trump.
I want to be. I want to get better into. I want better interview people than the Bestie guesties, which we're having one tomorrow, as you were saying. Go ahead.
Was that what I was going to say?
So, who, by the way, somebody who refused to be a Bestie guestie, wouldn't go on with them, has turned them down because their show isn't big enough, is coming on with us instead tomorrow.
Really? Oh.
Yes.
Oh, okay, I see. Yes. Am I supposed to announce it, or is it a surprise?
No, you can announce it.
Oh, tomorrow we're speaking with Robbie Starbuck, who is
not of the coffee chain and not of the Armada Battlestar Galactica.
No, but he and his wife are formerly of Hollywood and have moved to Tennessee because they're conservatives and they don't want to be around psychos anymore in California. So he's running for Congress in Tennessee, and except that the state GOP found him to be too radical and stymied him from getting on the ballot. They used the party rules to make it so that there was like a longer residency requirement, so he couldn't be on their GOP primary ballot.
Well, he's going to be our bestie guestie for tomorrow.
Very exciting news. I'm excited about that.
I have been writing my Substack, Alice. I wrote another one today,
Excellent work. Good job.
Today's Substack was entitled The Moths, formerly known as Gypsy Moths. Did I read this last night? I didn't, right?
No.
It's taken from, I saw a Channel 3 news story in Connecticut about these moths we're familiar with. The moths, formerly known as gypsy moths, are expected to be a problem for part of the state. I thought, oh, that's interesting. The moths formerly known as gypsy moths. And I remember gypsy moths. And the moths formerly known. Formerly known? Remember the artist formerly known as Prince for a while? And so this article takes pains to try to write an article about an epidemic of moths that we had in the 70s and 80s, which just predates you. But gypsy moth caterpillars were everywhere. Gypsy moths were a huge thing all over the northeast United States, maybe even the whole country. And they were a thing in my yard, everybody's yard, all the leaves. You could hear them eating all the leaves. These gypsy moth caterpillars were everywhere. You had to have them treated. I went to one guy's house with a blowtorch one time to try to kill them. And they were huge. You know what the nests look like?
Those like white
big
things
exactly. Some are huge, and they just crawling with these destructive bastards in them. And that's why you see a lot of those rings on the trees that are now 25 feet up, because they put those rings on the trees so the moths either couldn't go up or couldn't go down the trees, so they'd get stuck there or die or whatever. And those are still there. You can see them. It was a serious thing. It was a serious thing. It was an endemic pest problem every summer. So we all know, those of us who were around my age, what a gypsy moth caterpillar is. So now the Channel 3 has a problem here because they're having to say the moths formerly known as gypsy moths. In other words, we can't say gypsy moths anymore because that's hate and that's a racist slur. So we're going to encase it in this disclaimer and put it on a platter and hand it to you that way.
But if we just say the new name, people aren't going to know what it is.
Right. So we can't. So we've worked ourselves, because we are all progressives here, we've worked ourselves into a corner where we can't communicate correctly the issue anymore. If you mention the gypsy moths are back, that's all you would ever need in this whole thing, but you can't. The moths, formerly known as gypsy moths. By the way, if gypsy moth causes pain and harm somewhere, then I don't think hiding it in a burrito of the moths formerly known as gypsy moths, the venom's still in there.
Well, right, but the problem is that unlike a lot of like mascot questions and stuff, you can't, it's not well known enough. I mean, like I know people know what gypsy moths are, but the new name isn't well known enough, and the controversy about it the non-existent controversy about it isn't well known enough that people would get what you were talking about. If you just said the spongy moth, which used to have a name that was a racial slur, everybody would be scratching their heads because nobody thinks of Gypsy as a racial slur even. And there are mixed feelings about it too. It's like some Roma people don't mind the name or whatever, and some do.
You know what, Alice? A tom is a drum that gets beat with a stick again and again and again. A John is a bathroom, okay? Stuff hurts, okay? My last name is Shattuck. S-H-A-T is the past tense of something else, I think. Okay? Everybody lighten up, okay? Including the Gypsy population, okay? I've enough of it.
The Roma people?
Right. So, by the way, this comes as CNN. When I looked at that, I thought CNN must have something on the chains. And of course they do. CNN had a report on this subject entitled, "An Invasive Species Now Has a New Name to Replace Ethnic Slur." So CNN had to write an article, even though they know the moths are coming back, but they have to write an article about an invasive species has a new name to replace the ethnic slur. So they've had to conjure up a news story about the name change so that they can proceed with the story about the invasion coming. Margaret Matachi, now listen to this, Alice.
Yep.
This is Margaret Matachi, director of the Roma program. This is the Roma as in Romanese, as in gypsies.
Yeah.
Now
you just call them Roma. You don't call them Romanese.
Margaret Matachi, director of the Roma program at the FXB Center for Health and Human Rights at Harvard University. That's where she's from. The FXB Center for Human Rights at Harvard University. She's with the Roma program. She's director of the Roma program at the FXB Center for Human Health and Human Rights at Harvard University. By the way, that university has a director of that program at that Center for Health and Human Rights, and they are tax exempt somehow. Fine. Anyway, she writes in an email, "The process to rename the G-moth can serve as a truly effective practice." She can't even get herself to say it. She can't say G because Gypsy, I assume, is the N-word for Romas or wherever they are. The G-moth. Really? We're doing this to ourselves, putting ourselves in a position here to have the G-moth? Anyway, she goes for yada yada, the spongy moth, and it's a slur, this and that. So at the end of the day, the CNN headline is, "An invasive species now has a new name to replace the ethnic slur." So now we are all going to pretend that spongy moth is something other than a declaration that the West is crap and we're terrible. That's it.
Well, now, and I assume it's like retroactive. So now I assume if you talk about spraying caterpillar nests with a blowtorch back in the 70s, you have to say that you were spraying spongy moth caterpillar nests.
Yes, exactly. And when somebody who's 75 says, "I don't recall spongy moths," and you hush them or put the pillow over their head and suffocate them.
Spongy moths were a huge thing in the 80s. Everybody knew about spongy moths. They were invasive and everywhere.
They were everywhere. Back when Caitlyn Jenner was winning Olympics matches. Okay, which is why, Alice, I wrote this piece for my Substack. This is, I don't usually write, this is just kind of an encapsulation of who's making these changes under the guise of doing something in the spirit of benevolence.
Okay.
And empathy and humanity. Under the guise. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive.
Did you make that up?
I wrote this, yes, I did. I came up with it today. Of all tyrannies, a tyranny sincerely exercised for the good of its victims may be the most oppressive. It would be better to live under robber barons than under omnipotent moral busybodies. The robber baron's cruelty may sometimes sleep. His cupidity may at some point be satiated. But those who torment us for our own good will torment us without end, for they do so with the approval of their own conscience. Tom Shattuck.
Wow, beautiful writing, sweetie. Really incredible.
Thank you. It's a great paragraph, if it is, or is it a sentence? It's a great sentence.
Good, well done. I'm very proud of you.
Thank you. All right, anything else going on? We're gonna call it a night.
Netflix is laying people off.
Oh, I love it. I love it. Yeah,
things not going well at Netflix.
Was there any
We've been over that before.
housekeeping we had to get to yesterday that we missed, or are we all good?
I think we're in good shape on that. But we do, I think, have some messages. And
Yes,
there was one quick email I wanted to get to as well.
Let's do the quick email.
The quick email I wanted to get to is Pete wrote back. You asked him about ducks.
Yes.
And he said, honestly, he's not a huge fan of the ducks. My wife and my youngest daughter love them, and they're pretty to look at, but they are louder than I anticipated.
Oh, yeah, we're enough of that.
Yeah, we're too invested in loud things already. They quack quite a bit. I prefer the chickens tenfold. We do have a stream in the yard, so once they're let out of the coop, they're happy and quiet in the stream. They do lay quite a bit of eggs, which are disgusting, so slimy, amazingly huge market for the eggs, and a bunch of psychos come to our house to buy them. And of course, our 7-year-old twins tried to fry one in the driveway today.
Jesus. Okay, that is good. That is good. Good counsel. Thank you, Pete. Peter?
Pete.
Thanks, Pete. Here we go.
Okay.
Hi, Alice and Tom. KG3000 checking in.
Oh.
First time, long time.
Good to hear.
Great episode yesterday.
Thank you.
Love the commentary for the various press briefings where we get to listen to this administration tie its tongue in knots over and over and over again. Anyways, thanks for all you do. A loyal listener. And Tom,
yes.
Why haven't you been on TikTok? I'd love to hear some more dad jokes and maybe see a few videos of the evil guinea fowl. All right, thank you. Bye.
Wait, did we cover the guinea fowl murder on this show?
We mentioned it, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. KG, it's a good thought. It's hard for me to get back onto TikTok because of the loss of my best friend, little Jerry Callahan, who was murdered, who was a big TikTok star. But I'll get the guinea fowl on TikTok, even though I don't want to make stars of them because we're at war. We're at war. I'll do more TikToks. It's a good thought. I'll do more.
Speaking of which, did you see the Libs of TikTok video from today that I sent you?
Yes. Should I jump to it now?
Yes.
Okay.
Please. I know that's backtracking.
Hey, you
know
what?
that it is.
You know what?
But
as long as it doesn't have swears, am I going to have to clean it up later?
No, it does not have swears.
Okay. So this shows a little kid, a boy, in a frilly dress. This is a tiny bit of the conversation we had. We talked about RuPaul, Jeffrey Marsh, and Ty Darren, and Scott Stewart. And this is a little boy jumping around in a dress with the parent very pleased with him or herself.
Okay, hold on. You love it, and you want it, and you picked it out, but you don't. But you don't want it for school. Can you tell me why?
Because the last time I wore a dress to school, everybody called me a girl.
Oh. Well, what did we learn from My Shadow is Pink?
Even when you wear a dress, you're not a girl.
What makes a shirt for a boy or a girl?
Nothing.
So do you want this? You picked it out.
I do want it.
You want to wear it all the time at home, but not at school, right?
Yeah.
Tell me about that.
I don't want to get made fun.
This is
okay, psychos.
And then they're gonna turn around and be like, "My kid was just trans. I did nothing to influence them."
The kid is not all that comfortable around the dress. He's not as comfortable as they want him to be. Obviously.
Yeah, he's like putting his other clothes back on.
Fun up, and that's what they always do when I wear pink and stuff.
I'm sorry,
But
baby.
not when I
Sorry,
wear it,
baby.
only on special occasions.
What makes you like dresses so much?
I just like dresses.
Do you think bright, pretty colors and dresses and sequins?
I'm not going to say anything at all, but I'm just saying that if I was to harbor a guess at to what mom looked like, I would be spot on.
And jewels and golds, all the things that you always want to wear.
Mm-hmm.
Do you think that's your innermost you?
Wow.
It is.
Well, how are you going to be your innermost you when we live in a place that people think clothing belongs to particular gender?
Ooh, that's an unwell mother. By the way, the mother and the kid are wearing the same shirt.
And shoes.
It's a trick, isn't it? You know, your mommy gets made fun of by people for looking like this, too.
Talk about right out of the character from About a Boy, huh? From the mother, you know, being a crackpot.
What do you think about that?
Nope. That's just wrong. That's just wrong.
You, right? Do you remember Jeffrey Marsh?
Stephanie Marsh. Who's Stephanie Marsh?
Jeffrey Marsh is one of the most beautiful people. Remember, they were born a boy, but they know that they're just them.
Mm-hmm.
What about Ty?
Ty. She's a girl.
They get made fun of sometimes too, man. I guess you just have to decide if being you is the most important part of you.
Let's go.
Okay, let's go.
Okay, I guess I have tomorrow's show ready.
So, now, once again, this is Libs of TikTok didn't like put a hidden camera in the department store changing room to capture this footage of this parent psychotically bullying their kid into wearing a dress so that this mom can feel like she has good liberal chops with her friends because her son wears a dress, right? The mom put this on TikTok, this video of her bullying her own kid this way. Because she's proud of it and she thinks this is great and good parenting. And she put it out there, and Libs of TikTok merely took the video and reposted it, which is the most insane behavior I think I've seen a parent do. So I'm glad. Thank you for bringing up TikTok, KG, to remind me that this video, I put this in our show notes for the day. Because what a lunatic parent.
Yes. All right, back to the chat.
Sorry, yes,
I'll
back
put Tom
to
on
chat.
this. Bigger gals need love too.
You know what? I don't see body type, so I'm not like you. Where I would judge somebody on body type whatsoever. To me, it's beauty is internal, and so I would never. The physicality of my wife, for instance, would never come into play in the amount of love and affection I would want to. Never.
Hey, Dom, there's a bunch of guinea fowl fighting me. Oh, they're everywhere. Hi, Alice.
Hi, Tom's right.
Please, away.
He's right. The guinea fowl are all over my bike, and as a matter of fact, that shed is open, so those losers go in there. Please, birds of prey, please follow these coordinates and dive bomb, destroy these.
Well, you had one guinea fowl kill another guinea fowl the other day, and he's still bullying more of them.
Let's
so
go. Let's go. Ugh. Oh.
Oh, shit.
Oh.
Is that an attack on me?
Well, I've gotten several. Most of them have been. That is somebody taking a massive hit off of a bong, Alice, which you'll recognize from your high school days in Lexington. But then, of course, your early 20s, of course, were a very different time where you indulged, and we thought for the last time, in something very different until last night where inexplicably, I guess because you were tired, you decided to blast lines during the show.
Tucker and Laura Ingram say every night.
Don't talk over it. Don't talk over it.
Tucker and Laura Ingram say every night.
That is Alice Shattuck. A la the Chateau Marmont. Blasting lines off of the side table here in the studio.
Okay. For the record,
incredible.
I have literally never done cocaine.
Alice, don't embarrass yourself. Don't insult the audience or embarrass yourself at this point.
For the record, supposedly people at my high school did do cocaine.
Tucker and Laura Ingram say every night.
Wow.
I was never offered drugs in my high school because I was extremely.
That's not the college days, Alice. I have my moles as well.
I did not do cocaine in college either.
Incorrect.
I have never done
Fact
cocaine.
check.
I have never.
Disinformation.
Never
Fake
done
news.
cocaine.
Fake news. Wrong.
Jeez. Thank you so much for listening, everybody except people who make fun of me. You can go listen to something else. And you can talk to us on Twitter at BurnBarrelPod, Facebook.com/BurnBarrelPodcast. To leave us a voice message, go to BurnBarrelPodcast.com, or you can write us an email, BurnBarrelPodcast@gmail.com. I hate you.